Good afternoon. This is Lunchtime News. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jackie Wambiru. Sign language interpreter is Lucy Morrow. Well, we have a comprehensive bulletin lined up. And for now, we kick off the bulletin with a story from Migori County, where the school board of Mabubi Primary in Kakrau ward has urged the county and the national government to come to their rescue and fix the dilapidated school infrastructure. Mabubi School Parent-Teacher Association chairperson Joseph Ongweso says the school is in a very bad condition and teachers, parents and pupils feel unmotivated by the current state of affairs.
Mabubi Primary in Kakrau ward. The administration block and many of the classes are made of mud structures. The entire school fraternity says it is tired of the current state of affairs. Mabubi School Parent-Teacher Association chairperson Joseph Ongweso says the school was assigned one teacher to take up the junior secondary school classes, but the tutor has since disappeared.
Hizi majengo ya zamani vile iko bado nyumba ya watu matope ni darasa. Hata walimu wakikuja hapa wengine wanatoroka tu kwa maana madarasa ni mbaya. Hata sisi tunaona aibu kwa hizi darasa.
Kuna mwalimu alikuja hapo wa junior secondary akuwa posted kutoka mahali alitoka. Vile alifika akaangalia shule, akasema hii sehemu siwezi fanya kazi, alirudi. Hatujui kama alidecline appointment ama alikuwa transferred na TSC akapelekwa shule moja mzuri. Wanafunzi wanakaa hapa, hakuna mwalimu wa kuwafundisha. Je, itakuwa mpaka lini?
Mabubi, which was established in 2006, had registered 35 students for junior secondary school, but only 25 of them remain.
Sasa walimu aliletwa tu hapo ya junior secondary. Akiingia hapa na akiingia tu. Hawezi fanya, hao watoto wanakaa tu bure bila kufundishwa. Sasa naomba serikali wetu, naomba mbunge wetu, naomba gavana wetu, naomba women wetu, naomba wote wetu waangalia hii Mabubi vile iko.
The parents want the Teacher Service Commission to move with speed and address the lack of junior secondary school teachers here.
Hapa kuna madarasa tu manne. Moja imechukuliwa na watu wa CBC junior secondary na mengine matatu imebaki ya primary. Kwa hivyo kuna uhaba wa classes. Na hizi ziko hapa pia za matope hazifai kulingana na saa hii.
They also want the government to modernize the school infrastructure. Reporting for Lunchtime News, I am Teresa Mutai.
And on health matters, Gertrude's Children's Hospital has announced its second annual cancer walk event, which aims to raise 15 million shillings to improve early cancer diagnosis and treatment in children. The walk, which is scheduled for May 21st, 2023, aims to help children from low-income communities access cancer care as part of Kenya's drive to reduce childhood cancer mortality. Speaking about the event, Gertrude's Children's Hospital CEO Dr. Robert Nyarango encouraged the public to participate in the walk to help fight the growing cancer epidemic.
And the main theme this year is to support early diagnosis of cancer in children. So to create awareness and mobilize resources for early diagnosis of cancer in children. Would want members of the public to come and learn about cancer, early diagnosis, because each of us has the potential to actually save a life.
And now we cross over to Upper Hill, where the Office of President's Advisor on Women's Rights and of the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association is currently holding a consultative forum regarding the President's executive memo on the constitutional amendments. And for a comprehensive report, we link up with our reporter Ruth Wamboy for more details. Ruth?
Thank you so much, Jacqueline Wambiru. We are coming to you live from the Radisson Blue Hotel here in the capital of Nairobi, whereby women women leaders are having a consultative forum whereby they are seeking to have a constitutional amendment bill to ensure that the 2/3 gender rule is achieved in the country. And just to have more information on what the women have been discussing during this consultative meeting, I have the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Boss. Welcome, Mheshimiwa.
Yes. I think we better start with the Honorable Harriet Chigai,
Yes.
who's the advisor to the President on women's rights.
Okay.
She's our host, and then I'll go.
All right. Yes, Harriet Chigai, kindly tell us what the meeting has been all about.
Well, thank you very much, especially to KBC for graciously accepting to grace this occasion. As you're aware, women leaders have come together just to unpack this issue of 2/3. It's a conversation that has been going on for a while. You saw what transpired in Parliament. Parliamentarians have had their discussions on the same. The Senate also has already had discussions on this particular issue, and the women leaders have decided to just come and have an open discussion to unpack this issue so that we can all move together, we can all have an understanding of where we are coming from, where we are going, and also to unpack the discussions that are currently going on. You'll realize that this discussion has been going on for many years. Honorable Solei's bill was the last in Parliament. A very good document, but today she's telling me she's actually pulled it off so that these particular discussions can pick up and so that we can have a proper constitution amendment bill that then parliamentarians can be able to have a look at, take it through public participation, and for it to be able to be passed. So the women leaders are here just to converse, to have that discussion, to have that understanding so that we can all move in one direction. And from what you have seen also, it is very clear for the first time in the history of this country, we have a leadership that truly cares, and a leadership through His Excellency the President, who is now saying, we've had these discussions for many years. It is actually time that we realize gender equality. And the women currently, as we speak in Parliament, we don't have enough women as yet because we have not reached the 2/3 gender principle. So it is important we have an equalizer in terms of us having proper representation. And it's also important for us to understand that when we talk about gender realization, in the next 15-20 years, we might be flipping it and having a different conversation altogether. So even as we want to increase the numbers for women, we are also telling our male counterparts, but that in the near future, it might actually be an issue that might need to address a deficit, if at all it ever happens, that the male will be the ones who will now be calling for more numbers to come in play. But as we speak right now, we've had very, very, very good discussions cutting across board. Women have contributed. We were also graced with Zena Rashid, who has also put in a lot of weight when it comes to persons with disability. So you can see the discussions are actually rich and they are wholesome. Yeah.
And kindly, what do you think, what are some of the issues or challenges that they are facing that maybe when you go and meet with the president, what are some of the issues that they want you to take to the president so that this bill can be enacted?
Well, for sure, you can. It's in the public domain that women representation has always been on the lower side, and it's historical. You know, when you look at the issues of women in leadership, it also goes towards culture. One of the key issues that has come, we have certain constituencies or rather regions in this country where when you speak about women leadership, it's almost a taboo. But now we are saying, let us break these barriers for the purposes of the future. It is not about us, it's actually about the future. Where will these young women, young men be when we talk about 15-20 years from now? So regions where women leadership has been downplayed for long, we're also encouraging them. It is high time we embrace our women so that we can see the progress and progression when it comes to leadership and governance.
Thank you so much, Harriet Chigai.
Thank you.
Welcome, Gladys Bosch-Sholei. You are the Deputy Speaker in the National Assembly. Then tell us, maybe when the bill comes to Parliament, how are you going maybe to ensure that you lobby so that the men, because they are majority in the Assembly, they can pass?
I think what has been exciting about this consultative meeting, and we wish to thank Harriet Chigai for this, is because she has put together women from across the political divide. And that is important because we can each reach out to our political parties and persuade them to whip the members, the men particularly, to be able to vote for the 2/3 gender bill when it does come before the House. We are looking at our numbers and analyzing it. And also what has happened today is the bill is not ready yet, but this has also been conversations where women have enriched the bill. We've had women who are living with disabilities who have been able to tell us that when you talk about bias against women is one thing, but when it becomes bias against women who are living with disabilities, it's 100 times more painful. And so those are some of the things that will be looked at. Some people have asked us, why do you want to have a position of that is at cabinet level, to advise the president on women's rights? And we said there's a lot of challenges. We have had challenges. We have challenges of gender-based violence. Yeah, it mostly affects women. When we talk about female genital mutilation, today we've had women from Kisii who have told us that the prevalence is 81%. Not even the churches have been able to deal with it. Yet it's almost like a society that's 80% Christian. And there's those challenges. We had stories about counties that have not even elected one woman MCA. It just tells you that the acceptance of women in leadership is still, our society is still very patriarchal. So this has been a good conversation. We are hoping that we can keep the conversation going, and to also make sure that this time, I'm very hopeful that we are going to be able to finally implement this bill. Remember that we have had no less than 4 court cases where the courts have agreed that Parliament is unconstitutional, where courts have held that the cabinet is unconstitutional for not having enough women. We have had a court decision where Parliament was ordered for dissolution, and the Chief Justice advised the then President on the dissolution. The dissolution is currently on the desk of the current President. And therefore, it's about time, because this...
Well, those pictures on your screen is an updated report on the consultative forum on constitutional amendments that is currently underway in Upper Hill. We shall be keeping you updated in our subsequent bulletin. For now, we cross over to Parliament building, where the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs spent the better part of the morning conducting the approval hearing of Shadrach John Mose to the position of Solicitor General. And we shall now be linking up with our reporter Gladys Mungai for a detailed report. Gladys, kindly bring us to speed.
Good afternoon to you, Jackie. Like you rightly put it, we are live from Parliament buildings, where a couple of departmental committees from the National Assembly, as well as standing committees when it comes to the Senate, have been holding sittings today since morning. They've been able to meet various cabinet secretaries as well as nominees. And one such case is the Jailer Committee of the National Assembly, that is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that was today in the morning vetting the nominee for the position of Solicitor General. And the nominee is none other than Shadrach Mose. And a couple of issues arose during that particular morning sitting, where the nominee was tasked to explain how he is going to ensure that he acts objectively, irrespective of the fact that he is an affiliate member of the United Democratic Alliance Party, as well as the appointing authority. So members of Parliament really wanted to understand whether he will be holding the spirit of the Constitution in regards to him dispensing his duties. Another issue is the aspect of the office of the Attorney General having lost its glamour. MPs comparing the office of the Attorney General now and when it was held by the late Charles Jonjo. And he was tasked to explain to the committee how he's going to ensure that the office of the Solicitor General as well as the office of the Attorney General, which work concurrently, get to show that it is an independent and a powerful office compared to what has been witnessed in the previous year. Lastly, the nominee for the Solicitor General position, Honorable Shadrach Mose, was tasked to explain why students emerging from law schools have not been performing very well, and he spoke about decentralizing the Kenya School of Law to ensure that various students from across the country are able to access law studies across the country. Lastly, we had the Cabinet Secretary for Labour, Honorable Florence Bore, who appeared before the National Assembly Committee specifically to explain the measures the government is putting in place to ensure that a number of Kenyans who have lost lives in Saudi Arabia get justice. And what the Cabinet Secretary told members of Parliament is that the government will be vetting agencies across the country before they issue licenses for the agencies to be enrolling Kenyans to get to work in Saudi Arabia. That is not all, Jackie. In the afternoon sitting, we have both houses of the bicameral parliament sitting, and we'll be relaying to members of the public what will be transpiring at the National Assembly as well as at the Senate. Back to you, Jackie.
Well, that was our reporter Gladys Mungai with an update of the approval hearing of Shadrach John Mose to the position of Solicitor General. We shall be keeping you updated. For now, we cross over to a different story where more than 1,000 families residing on an 11,000-acre disputed piece of land now want the government to compensate and relocate them as allegedly promised 3 decades ago. The families are embroiled in a land dispute with the Kenya Defence Forces in Mariakani area of Kilifi County.
Families living in Mariakani, Kilifi County decry of harassment by the military over land dispute. The residents claim that the government approached the community with the aim of constructing army barracks in the area, which residents obliged. Locals claim they were then paid for their houses and promised to be relocated to Magarini sub-county, which is more than 100 kilometers away, a thing that never happened.
Basi huku kukabaki kuko wanjani. Sasa sisi tutakaa hapo, wakasema tena tunafanya mambo, mutakuja tuchukue tumpeleke Magarini, kila mtu akapatiwe eka 12 na nyumba rumu 12 na shule na hospitali. Tukasema haya hakuna shida. Bado ya hapo tunangojea.
Residents say the constant threats of evictions have rendered them miserable, claiming that they cannot invest or develop their parcels of land for the fear of demolition.
Sasa kila kukicha unaambia ondokeni. Hata juzi wakaja ukanivunjia nyumba zangu. Zilivunjwa nyumba 20.
They added their efforts to get the matter resolved have hit headwind.
Ningeomba zaidi kama rais wetu angefikishiwa ujumbe huu, atutafutie mahali aone vile atasuluhisha ile tatizo. Kama ni tugawanyiwe huku ile sehemu ambayo haikujengwa, au kuna mahali pengine ambapo tunaweza ondolewa alafu tukaenda tukagawanyiwe.
Tunaomba kama kuna usaidizi tuweze kusaidiwa hapo, tuweze kupata mahali kwa kukaa. Manake hiyo chi tumezaliwa huko, tumeishi huko, hata sasa hakuna mahali kwa kwenda na hapo kulikuwa.
A 17-year-old Form 3 student in KBC County is seeking justice after she was allegedly assaulted by the headman of a local assistant chief in Nyamache sub-county. The student, Janet Irene, says the men pounced on her for allegedly speaking to a male friend.
According to Janet Irene Nyamongo, the only crime she committed was being found talking to a former male schoolmate by the roadside on her way home from the trading center. The community policing members pounced on the two and took them to the chief's office where they were allegedly assaulted.
Huyo community policing alishika huyo kijana, akamfunga kamba, akamchapa, akamtandika vibaya, wakamalizia wakanikuojea. Wakaanza kunitandika, wakinulizia maswali. Wakanitandika hapa mapacha zangu, sina nguvu ya kutembea vizuri.
Mtoto ashughulikiwe na huyu chief aeleze kama ofisi yake imekuwa Nyayo House.
Hii mambo yaangalie ili ukaweze kujua kwa nini acting chief anatoa ruhusa watu wanachapwa katika ofisi yake.
Irene, who was later dropped off at home, says the chief was not around at the time of the incident.
Sasa yeye kama hajawahi chukua huyo mtoto shule mpaka hospitali achue vile alitandikwa, na yeye ndiye alipeana amri huyo watoto wachapwe, mbona hajawahi enda ajue alichapwa kiasi gani?
She sought medical assistance from a local rights group, which has since called on the government to intervene and bring the perpetrators to book.
Homa Bay County Governor Gladys Wanga has urged Kendu Bay residents to support the county's cleaning initiative by cleaning their close surroundings in order to ensure that the county is free of garbage. Speaking in Kendu Bay during a regular cleaning session intended to raise residents' knowledge of the value of residing in a clean environment. Speaking at the same event, Homa Bay Deputy Governor Joseph Oyugi Mwang urged MCAs to draft bylaws to deal with those who discard organic refuse in an irresponsible manner. National Environment Management Authority and Specialist Josiah Nyandoro said plastic waste was the greatest contributor to environmental degradation in the area.
Na sisi kama serikali ya Homa Bay tumeamua ya kwamba mambo ya usafi tunaweka kipaumbele. Kila mwezi tuko na ile soko ama town ambayo tunaenda kufanyia usafi. Leo tuko hapa na tumesema lazima tuwe na ile kitu inaitwa circular economy. Hii mambo ya takataka ikue inaweza kubadilishwa ilete pesa kwa mifuko ya wananchi. Na hiyo tutafuatilia. Na town zetu zikuwe safi. Na hii si kazi tutafanya leo peke yake, tutafanya kila mwezi mpaka tumalize kazi yetu miaka 10 kutoka sasa.
Must appreciate the Mawego students for coming, Gendia students and Kindu Muslim for turning up to support us in this cause.
There is the issue of Juala, polythene. Polythene is everywhere, and you might be surprised that even when you are cleaning here, the greatest contributor was polythene, and remembering well that it was banned in 2007. There are alternatives, and I think we shall get an opportunity so that we talk about it more. Thank you.
And now on our special edition of Changing Tides, teachers through their unions now describe the teething challenges facing the transition from 844 education system to the competence-based curriculum CBC as normal changeover issues that should not in any way be used to criticize what both NAT and COPET term as competitive and market-driven education system. And as Ruth Wamboy reports, the unions are calling for cooperation from all stakeholders to make CBC a success.
Competence-based curriculum CBC has been a subject of discussion in the country for a while now. A move that saw former President Uhuru Kenyatta appoint a presidential working party to look into the elephant in the room. Teachers' unions in the country who were initially opposed to some of the reforms have now changed tune.
We have since shifted our position based on the fact that this is a democratic country and we cannot push our ideas on and lord it over on all Kenyans. So we cooperated and we thought the Teacher Service Commission, the Ministry of Education, was going to do all it takes to ensure that the transition is smooth.
But the Teachers Service Commission is once again on the receiving end for failing to address the anomalies of the number of students per school, as well as teachers' deployment.
There are schools where classrooms are just political rallies, but there are schools where there is also an enrollment depending on the locality. And the Teacher Service Commission has failed, he has not come up with policy to rationalize that what number of students do we need to have in a specific school, so that we don't have an over-enrollment in one school and an enrollment in another.
Basically, let the government employ. Once employment is on course, every other person outside there will feel, let me go to college, because at the end of it all, my employment will be ready. Do you know we have teachers who've been outside here for over 12 years? If one trained in 2009, not yet employed to date, what does that mean? Does it even make sense having others train for employment in future?
And to cool down the temperatures on the anxiety of parents, teachers and learners on the future of CBC.
So at this stage, we are preparing people for pathways, and we don't want to limit the pathways. That's why, in fact, they should even have been 16, but now they are only 14. For pathways, for sports, for music, performing arts, to be in the sciences and in business, I think it's not asking too much for these learners. They can do most of the things.
Preparedness of implementation of CBC was not actually ripe as at 2019. We ought to have had much more time. But because we cannot run away from it, let us sort out the issues as they come.
With the curriculum being skill-centered, the unions urge parents to be reliable support system to their children.
Globally, this is the way to go. And we cannot deny in any way that if we are left behind by other countries, there will come a time that will reach them. So let's allow our people to take this one positively. Let's change their attitude.
The pioneering grade 7 learners are the first cohort of the competence-based curriculum. The train has left and the country can't hesitate. It's time for all of us to pull up our socks and ensure the baby CBC reaches its peak.
Well, that report by Ruth Wambiru brings us to our first break here on Lunchtime News. Don't go too far, we still have more news coming up.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
I'm Marie Yangbo here in the southern part of the country in Oloitoktok, where, as you can see, farmers have lost their crops to the ongoing drought. Some families are even feeling the pressure to marry off their girls for an income. That story coming soon on KBC Channel 1.
To get Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 as your skiza tune, dial *811 *967 #.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6.
To get Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5, dial *811 *967 #. *811 *967 #.
Welcome back. Immediately after independence in 1963, there was a need to have a single education system away from the stratified pre-independence one, in which there was an African education, European and Asian. So the 7-4-2-3 system, or A-level, was birthed, lasting 21 years, followed by the 8-4-4, which has lasted 32 years, being replaced by the competence-based curriculum. Judith Akolo takes you through the three transitions and what to expect going forward with the CBC or the 26333 system of education introduced in 2017.
The Ominde Commission of 1964 came up with the 7-4-2-3 system of education with the aim of creating a single nation that reflected the nation's sovereignty away from the stratified system that had African education, Asian and European. However, by 1970, there were jitters over the lack of capacity and flexibility for the 7-4-2-3 to respond to the changing aspirations of the labor market needs due to the lack of new skills, technologies, and general attitude towards work. The system was seen as too academic, yet the rate of unemployment was rising year after year. The notion that education was the main medium for social mobility and national economic development began to fade away. Calls for a change in the education system culminated in the Mackay Commission report of 1982, which saw the introduction of the 8-4-4 system of education in 1985. The new system was seen as the panacea to the unemployment debacle, as it would equip learners with employable skills, ending up in either self-employment or secure employment in the informal sector. It recommended more science streams in schools, mathematics, as well as technical and vocational subjects in order to have more learners get skilled. 8-4-4 started meeting resistance immediately after introduction, as it was thought to be broad, expensive, and burdensome. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development Evaluation came up with a damning report that seems to have sounded the death knell on the 8-4-4 system. The report indicated that the 8-4-4 system was examination-oriented, put more emphasis on content coverage, lacked special needs curriculum, ICT infrastructure, and career guidance. The system could not train employable people as had been envisaged.
One of the biggest accusations of 8-4-4 is that children come out, it's a wasteful system. It is not the education system. It is the economy of the country.
The Ominde and Mackay systems were set aside, and in came the Professor Dominic Odhiambo Task Force report that sought to realign the education sector to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The 2633 education system aims to enable learners to be globally competitive as well as ensure quality education for sustainable development. The competence-based curriculum, CBC, puts emphasis on core competencies, communication and collaboration, self-efficacy, critical thinking, and problem-solving, creativity and imagination, citizenship, digital literacy, and learning to learn, geared towards helping learners become engaged, empowered, ethical citizens so as to thrive in a fast-paced 21st century world by solving real-life issues. Renowned educationist and Vice-Chancellor of Daystar University, Professor Laban Airo, explains the findings of a report of a task force he chaired on CBC.
Primary education cannot give you a carpenter. Yeah, and I'm being a little blunt. Yeah, even as secondary education, when I was at high school, my colleagues went to technical institutes. They did not come out as electricians or carpenters. No, they had an introduction so that then the TVET institutions would take over. And we have this misconceived idea that CBC is supposed to give us functional citizens. It can't. It cannot. First of all, just the age itself wouldn't allow that kid to apply themselves to become a carpenter, a plumber, or an electrician.
Considering the teething challenges that many parents have had to go through in finding schools for their grade 7 children, Professor Airo offers.
Rolling out CBC in the first 4 grades was going to cost this country 360 billion Kenya shillings. And what was our driving thrust? That there must be equity. And this is something Kenyans must be very sensitive to. Equity. I don't want to talk about parity, but equity, because a child in Igunga Primary School in Vihiga, a child in Tana River, a child way up in Wajir, a child in Kapenguria must be exposed to the same quality of education and instruction. That is what defines us as a nation.
The current infrastructure challenges notwithstanding, it could be a tall order for the government.
But also we must remember what the value of theory is very, very critical in the formation of the learning mind. Yeah.
The quest for a suitable education system for Kenya remains elusive. Yet, education is an insurance for social mobility and a reservoir of knowledge and human resource.
Teachers were not trained in CBC. These kids are amorphous. They are neither CBC nor 844. But the teachers just taught these kids just the way they taught 844. I don't think these kids are more practical oriented than the other kids who are in class 8 today. They're not. So it's possible and reinforcing things.
Which way, Kenya? Judith Akolo, Lunchtime News. Making headlines in the business world, Kenya plans to review the Mining Act of 2016 to make the country an attractive mining destination. The review will see special incentives for investing in exploration introduced, while investors will get tax incentives. Mining Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya says the law review will also seek to modernize artisanal mining, which is largely informal and fragmented.
Is regarded as a mineral powerhouse in Africa that remains largely underexploited. The country is richly endowed in gold, titanium, oil, gas, coal, and rare earth minerals estimated to be worth trillions of shillings. In 2016, the government enacted a new mining act that sought to give impetus to the struggling sector. However, more than 5 years later, the country is yet to attract big global mining giants. Titanium has become the biggest mineral export from Kenya, with base titanium exporting minerals worth more than 25 billion shillings in 2021. Mining Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya says the Mining Act will be reviewed further to attract more investments.
That artisanal miners at whatever level can be recognized and can be supported directly by government. And that is why today it is my opportunity to hear them, to listen to them. And already, Your Excellency, we have just done a brief exercise of mapping, and we have mapped around 66 artisanal miners in groups so far.
Experts say amendments to the regulatory framework to improve licensing process will help a conducive environment for investment in exploration efforts. The mining sector currently contributes less than 1% to Kenya's GDP, with a potential to contribute 10% by the year 2030.
We have done a multi-agency team which should be reporting to us in April to have a framework that can release money to local communities.
Speaking in Migori County, where Atsaino mining is becoming a lucrative, highly unregulated sector, Mvure says the government has set various mechanisms to improve the welfare of the miners. Migori Governor Dr. Ochilo Ayako called on the national government to work closely with devolved governments to reap the benefits of the extractive sector. I'm Rukero for Lunchtime News.
Kenya Electricity Generating Company KENGEN is collaborating with the European Investment Bank to accelerate renewable energy investments. The venture is set to showcase Olkaria as a standard model for renewable energy to the rest of the world and push for adoption of green energy projects.
About 70% of Kenya's installed electricity capacity comes from renewable energy sources, which is more than 3 times the global average. KENGEN is collaborating with the European Investment Bank to ensure that all renewable energy facets are explored to help reduce the impact of fluctuation on crude oil prices and drought on electricity generation.
We are now in discussion with KENGEN on possible future investments in this region based on this renewable way of creating electricity.
The partnership is in line with the global climate agenda that requires countries to transition to 100% green energy by 2030.
Very happy to cooperate with governments that put renewable energy and the fight against climate change on top of its agenda.
This emerged during a tour of the 86-megawatt Olkaria 1 Additional Unit 6 geothermal power plant by the Vice President of the European Investment Bank. Ndutamo Kami for Lunchtime News.
Scientists say irrigation might not be the solution to the acute food shortage Kenya is facing, as water availability does not necessarily guarantee an increase in yield. Kenyatta University biotech research expert Professor Richard Oduor says climate change is making crop pests and diseases more persistent, and resilient genetically modified crops will inevitably be needed to guarantee food security.
Kenya produces an average 40 million bags of maize annually, but requires at least 52 million bags for self-sufficiency. In order to plug this gap, imports as well as increasing the land under irrigation have been recommended, especially in arid and semi-arid areas. Scientists, however, say irrigation alone would not guarantee increased production, since the crop is still susceptible to pests and diseases that affect yields.
That gene is what we have moved it into the genome of maize, so that maize is able to produce that toxin. What does that do? It means that any stem borer that eats the maize is the one that is going to be affected. The one that is not eating will not be affected. And that actually saves biodiversity. Rather than spraying, when you spray using the pesticides, you are killing anything that is around, including those that were full, that were not even interested.
He says unless the crops are resistant, this might force farmers to use more pesticides, which has more harm on consumers in the long run.
Improving knowledge in this field. Kenya is largely arid and semi-arid. More than 80% is ASAL. We have only about 16%, which is high potential where you can grow a crop and expect to harvest without irrigation. We need all forms of technologies to be able to increase food production and to be able to utilize the various parts of the country that have challenges. We also have the challenge of pests and diseases. One of the greatest areas of cost when it comes to agriculture is the cost of crop protection.
They are now advocating for full adoption of GMO foods to ensure food security.
will be able to invest in treasury bills and bonds from your comfort location following the launch of Central Securities Depository CSD next month. Speaking while launching the revamped Central Bank Banking Hall, Central Bank Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge said investing in government securities will be a simple process, as previously you could only invest in treasury bills through the Central Bank of Kenya directly and a commercial bank or an investment bank.
Kenyans have now got to a point where they appreciate services on their mobile phones. Those of you that invest in T-bills or, for that matter, government bonds, from next month, once we launch the new CSD, you'll be able to do all that on your phone. Diaspora, for instance, if they need to register to buy bonds or buy T-bills, they have to come to the central bank here to register, etc., and to apply.
Herders in 10 arid counties will have the option of enrolling for a heavily subsidized insurance plan anchored on frequent and cyclic drought. Agriculture Principal Secretary Harry Kimtai says the government and the World Bank will subsidize the cost of the index-based livestock insurance product by 80%, with herders paying the remaining 20%.
The Ministry of Agriculture says about 2.6 million head of livestock have died in the last 5 months due to the worst drought in 4 decades experienced in Kenya. So far, the State Department of Livestock estimates that drought has cost the livestock subsector about 37.7 billion shillings. To mitigate such losses, the government has sealed a deal with the World Bank and a regional insurance company to subsidize livestock insurance to encourage uptake amid frequent and recurring droughts.
Government fiscal space is getting smaller, and therefore, the farmers needs to protect their investments. Through the normal the policies that we are implementing on ending drought emergencies, we decided to go into a subsidy program where the farmer pays, pastoralist pays 20%, the government subsidizes 100% in year 1. In year 2, it will drop down to 70% and 30%.
Under the index-based insurance plan, the insured are compensated once the meteorological department confirms failure of rains in their area. This means, in case when the claims becomes liable, the insurance firm does not have to investigate or do paperwork that delay compensation, rather it pays promptly.
Reports from the satellites and the pictures and the studies, we will be able to know whether the forage is getting depleted, what's going to happen based on also the weather forecast. So that shows that for a period of time there's going to be drought in that particular area. So with that information, then it triggers what is called a payout.
The regional insurance company has committed 45.3 billion shillings to underwrite index-based livestock insurance in 5 Horn of Africa countries, namely Kenya, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia, and Eritrea.
Treasury has been given 6 months to create a sinking fund that will help in debt servicing. The Parliamentary Public Debt and Privatization Committee has also directed the National Treasury to put a framework in place that will help Kenya negotiate Kenya shillings-dominated loans. The committee that was set up late last year wants the public pension list audited to flush out illegal payments.
Globally, countries are setting up sinking funds to help deal with the challenges of debt sustainability. A sinking fund is a facility where governments or entities set aside money for a specific purpose within a period of time. In May 2021, the National Treasury published regulations on the establishment of the fund, though it remains at the initial stage. The Debt and Privatization Committee of the National Assembly says in a report tabled in Parliament that debt repayment from the Consolidated Fund Services, which also covers other recurrent payments like salaries and pensions, is draining public finances. The committee has also raised concerns with the growing debt portfolio in Kenya, which currently stands at 9.15 trillion shillings and is projected to grow to 9.4 trillion shillings by June 2023.
Tata Chemicals Magadi has embarked on sustainable climate smart investments in a bid to address high cost of energy and conservation of the environment. The company's managing director says under the sustainability plan, Tata Chemicals Magadi has developed a solar power plant and constructed dams to limit soil erosion and siltation.
The World Bank says energy prices are poised to decline by 11% this year, although slower global growth and post-COVID recovery could lead to deeper fall. Rising cost of energy has prompted Tata Chemicals Magadi to resort to the use of renewable energy. Tata Chemicals Magadi is building dams, drilling boreholes and maintaining water pipes.
We do have now plans to grow. We had a tough time in the past. We have gone past it. Now we are really looking at growth through some innovative solutions, the smart solutions, climate smart solutions. And that's what Mr. Mukundan also shared.
The natural soda ash manufacturer that sells about 350,000 tons annually to markets across Asia, Middle East and Africa is attributed to the balanced global supply demand.
We certainly believe there is a constant need to improve the infrastructure for the logistics of the product, and all the efforts which have been put in. I think we are working very closely in terms of making sure the material movement and the product movement is as efficient as possible.
Frederick Muki for Lunchtime News.
Smartwatches and bracelets able to monitor people's health conditions have seen sharp increase of sales as people are caring more about health conditions due to the COVID-19 epidemic. The best sellers in the market are the smart wearable products able to monitor people's heart rate, blood oxygen and body temperature. Here are the details of these and other stories making headlines across the globe.
The data shows that China's online sales volume of smart bracelets that can monitor blood oxygen increased by 13% year-on-year December 2022, while sales of smart watches that can monitor body temperatures increased by 60%. Factories are at full steam to produce smart watches and bracelets to meet consumers' demand. Besides finishing orders of products available in the market, many smart device producers are devoted to developing new products. It is estimated that China's sales volume of smartwatches for adults will increase by 15 to 20% in 2023. Meanwhile, Mercedes-Benz has teamed up with Google on navigation to offer supercomputer-like performance in every car with automated driving sensors as it seeks to compete with Tesla and Chinese newcomers. Automakers are now racing to match software-powered features pioneered by Tesla, which allow for vehicle performance, battery range, and self-driving capabilities to be updated from a distance. Drivers will also be able to watch YouTube on the car's entertainment system when the car is parked, or in Level 3 autonomous driving mode, which allows a driver to take their eyes off the wheel on certain roads as long as they can resume control if needed. Finally, Russia's economy has proved unexpectedly resilient in the face of tough Western sanctions last year, but a return to pre-conflict levels or prosperity may be far off as more government spending is directed towards the military. High prices for its energy exports helped cushion the blow from sanctions aimed at isolating Russia economically, while capital controls saw its currency strengthen to a 7-year high. A collapse in imports led to a record current account surplus. Russia's central bank's analysis of the country's economic health is consistently more pessimistic than Putin has warned that the widening budget deficit is inflationary and more likely to hike interest rates from 7.5% this year than cut them.
Now in the sports arena, Belgian striker Romelu Lukaku scored the only goal as Inter Milan narrowly beat Porto 1-0 at San Siro in the first leg of the UEFA Champions League last 16 March. A total of 8 Europa League second leg matches are on card tonight, with the biggest win pitting Manchester United and Barcelona.
Loitering, rolling it forward, very nicely done.
Inter Milan have an advantage in the UEFA Champions. The other match, Manchester City were held to a 1-1 draw by German side RB Leipzig.
Team game who can hit a ball as sweet as he can.